few quick comments on the video we saw before. Today's theme for our conference is engaging solutions. And when the Rick Mercer report approached us in August of 2013 through our Canadian office in Ottawa to do a story on the Western Canadian wheat harvest, I thought to myself, why do you want to do this? And I said, to engage. We have between 1% and 2% of the population in Canada lives the lifestyle that I do on a farm. To engage that other 98 or 99% of the people is something that I think that we, as everyone sitting in this room, we have to continually engage them. And engage them in all the factors in life where we are. Whether it's environmental issues. So many people out there don't understand what the issues are. Water issues, as we have here tonight. Agricultural issues, as this video showed. And I found it a real value for me to be able to advocate for agriculture. To show them that we are a modern industry. We farm 5,000 acres. We're an agribusiness. And I think that video shows a somewhat different picture than sometimes of what people see out there on the farm. Yeah, we all wear overalls yet. But, I think it just shows a different business. Where it's high input, high capital investment, and there's business risk in it that we're willing to take every day. So, and what I take out of that whole thing, and I encourage everyone here to be that advocate for your role or for what you want to advocate in life. And don't be scared. We're sitting around a coffee table or whatever. Just Saturday night, I sat down at a local event in our little town of Round Hill, and I had someone tell me we got to get rid of GMOs, genetically modified organisms, in our food. And I explained to them, that there are values to these as we go forward. And don't be scared ever to advocate or to engage in that advocacy of the people as we go forward. Tonight I'm here to discuss the market role in water allocations in Alberta. As has been presented before, both by David and Karen and Glenn, the allocation in Alberta, in the South Saskatchewan River Basin we realize that 130% of allocated use of river flows. Of that, about 70% of that goes to agricultural purposes and into our irrigation canals. So it is a very big part to agriculture of where we go forward, and I'll try to cover most of that. I'm very pleased to be Vice President of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. We represent 200,000 farmers across the country. I've had a very wonderful opportunity to travel around the world and to see where water fits into everyone's plans around the world, from Argentina to Europe, and see how they manage and watch how they farm and where water fits into those things. Tonight I'm going to focus on, give a little lowdown on where water fits into our agricultural operations, agriculture and agri-food, the role of processing, the role of these sectors have in our economy. Some national perspectives that I've gained through my job on the national perspective of water issues across the country. The system effects of the market's role and market transactions in the water systems, and especially the South Saskatchewan River Basin, because that is where we've seen market play a role. Future water sources. It's hard to come and have that long-term discussion when we don't realize what sources we have, what water is there, how much groundwater we have, is it potable, is it usable, surface water, what are the flows. And I'm going to close out with some advances that we're using in agriculture to address water needs and to address the water usages we have. Water is primary. It's a giver of life. Every one of us out there needs water to live, to survive. It's also critical to the production of food that we enjoyed for supper tonight and enjoy daily that we produce in our farms across Alberta and Canada. It's made up of three things: air and sunlight, soil and soil nutrients, and water. It's that water triangle, that life triangle that lives around plant life that's so incumbent upon our survival. Water management, it's been something there. So I was talking with Glenn, and I always wonder who in the early 1900s decided to design the irrigation and the water management system that we have in these basins in southern Alberta. The technology they had, the tools they had to build these dams and dikes, and how they manage them. There's very little pumping. It's all water flow and gravity. And you see water flowing from virtually the mountains right out to Lethbridge down a ridge. Who designed this? They didn't have GPS units they can walk around and say. Somebody was out there with a surveyor and did it. And it's been an issue all the time, from droughts to floods as we cross our prairies. Water needs in agriculture and agri-food processing, and in processing in a whole. This food has to be processed. The food we ate on our plates tonight, there's a process it has to go through. And food processors are an important part of preparing that food for our eventual use. Some uses in packaging, but washing and food safety is critical. You know, we hear food safety stories coming constantly, and it comes down to washing and having good, clean, available water to wash that product so that we can enjoy safe, nutritious products on our plates. The role of agriculture in Canadians' economy. I think sometimes that agriculture is looked as that thing down at the bottom that we're not really that big. We have over 200,000, 5,000 farms across this country. We directly employ 300,000 people on those farms, and a production of $115 billion. Okay? And today an average Canadian farm, which is smaller than one we run, feeds 120 people every day of the year. 365 days of the year we produce enough food to feed 120 people out of our farm. Agri-food and agri-processing. 1 in 8 jobs are tied to the agri-food and agri-processing jobs in Canada. At a meeting with the food processors of Canada in Ottawa just last week, sitting down with them, they said food processing is a bigger industry in Canada than the auto industry. And somehow we have to advocate for that and understand that they are that big. Food processing is a big part of it. 40% of the Canadian farm product is processed by Canadian producers. And they are the largest manufacturing sector in Canada again. A national perspective on water. I mean, as David's pointed out in his talk, there's all kinds of different allocations and different licensing things as we go across Canada. A part of my travel is going to the island of Prince Edward Island. You know, they have very little surface water. I mean, it's 8 or 10 miles wide. I mean, I know when my wife and I were traveling one day, and we're driving down the island, and she cut the map out, and we were on the other side of the island, and she said, "How did that happen?" Well, it's just a small place. So their water all comes from groundwater. And through my travels through there the last couple of years, their annual meetings, they believe their picture of what they have is this big pond of potable water and unusable water underneath their island. And that's where all their water comes from. But their agriculture sector has been denied the access to that. If you want to start a car wash, it's not a problem getting a license. If you want to start any other business, industrial business, your business. But agriculture and their potato industry has been denied for 10 years access to their high volume production wells to irrigate their potatoes. So it comes down to a lot of different roles across the country. Climate change, it's going to be critical. For anyone to deny climate change is happening is I think, is a fallacy. Can we affect it, or can we change it, or direct it in the direction we need or want it to go? Possibly not, and I kind of believe we can't do that. But we have to learn to live and how to manage our demands, how we're going to manage through that in climate change. We need to develop better models to predict future water availability. I know in Alberta we're groundwater mapping, and we're working very hard to come to an idea of what we have for groundwater mapping. Better models to understand where our river flows will come out of the mountains over time. As you know, we see anybody who ever travels up through Jasper to the glacier in the middle there, the big glacier, and you see it drawn back. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid a year ago, it was out, when I was young, it was out at the highway. Today it's a 3-mile bus ride to the base of it. So we have to develop some models of predictability of where we expect water to be. And that covers both surface and groundwater. And I guess we have to look internationally around the world to see how things are managed. We look at the California experience, where we have agriculture in California and production and life there has been totally devastated in some spots because of the lack of water management and how we get to that. I know that in my travels I've had many meetings with a fellow from North Dakota or South Dakota, Steve Bacchus. He's a leader of a farm organization down there. And as you fly over that area through the Midwestern states, you see circles, irrigation pivots forever, eh? Come through there and you see them. And on my last flight over there, I had a long look. I said, where's the surface water to feed these? They don't use surface water. It's all out of their aquifer that the Keystone Pipeline is running into trouble getting through. And talking to me, he says, we know the aquifer is down, but we're going to continue on the path we are. And those were his words. And I think we have to have a long look at that. And there's just a picture of California in the bottom there to show how things have changed. I'm going to direct most of my comments to two irrigation districts who I had long chats with to talk, and they're the ones that have been involved in the market's role of where irrigation and water allocations are going to go. The Bow River District and the Western Irrigation District in the southern Alberta. The Bow River Irrigation District contains the third largest area in Alberta under irrigation, 260,000 acres on 650 farms. Critical for those operators, critical to their agriculture and agri-food industry. Potatoes, sugar beets, all huge industries and huge suppliers of people past the farm gate. You know, the potato manufacturing industry is huge in southern Alberta. So is there, we have the only place in Canada that grows domestic sugar. They do grow sugar beets in southern Ontario, but they're all transported to the States for processing. That's the last available spot for us that is running today to grow sugar. Water availability depends on supply by irrigation, increase the farmland up to 500%. And driving through there, anyone who's driven through there sees the value of irrigation. To ensure that there's water through the whole system, maintenance and processes are ongoing. And that's where some of the market role goes here. As we said, they're expanding their irrigation areas. That money is being used to rehabilitate their handling systems. Control of seepage. You know, seepage in the past was huge. They're lining these canals. They're putting pipelines in. And other issues they get to conserve the water, to make that water, to use more of the water for the products that we need to use it for. As I said, pipelines are a huge part of how they get to do it, how they move it. Rather than through canals that are very costly to operate, costly to maintain, and a lot of loss of water. And that loss of water to the air or to the ground is lost for all Albertans, not just them. The Western Irrigation District, they run right from west of Calgary, right through Chestermere, right out to farther out there. 400 farms, 96,000 acres of farmland irrigated, and supplies water to over 12,000 people in 4 different communities. And that's one of the parts that sometimes our irrigation districts aren't looked upon. They supply water to industry and to the communities we have along these irrigation canals. They're not just out there to irrigate farmland. Huge things. I mean, as you travel down there, you understand, and as you drive, you see the lakes and the reservoirs that are out there, and provides recreational activities, flora, fauna, fish, that these things bring to as it's done. And I believe it's a good method of water management. The Western Irrigation District is also very aggressively rehabilitating their water delivery system. Smaller canals are replaced, same thing with pipelines and whatever. So that's where their reinvestment is going. Investment from the market is being placed into water conservation areas. They're also using electronic systems now to more control, to monitor the flow of water. If you're a needer of water or someone who needs water X number of miles down the canal, they plan that water will be released from the reservoir to get to your site, your extraction site at the right time. They're using electronic systems now to better monitor that, so we can better monitor exactly how much water is needed and that it gets to the right place at the right time. Growing urban and industrial demands. I mean, we as agriculture haven't got our head in the sand, and we know that being users of 70% of the water in that district, that there will be push from urban and industrial demands as we go forward. I think we all have to be involved in that discussion to bring forward the answers to get there. I think the irrigation districts are open to that discussion any time to move forward, and we as agriculture are. And both irrigation districts I talked to said that they're going to change some of their business model to not a multitasking water supplier, because they're servicing communities, they're servicing industries. They're not just an irrigation district anymore, servicing irrigation of farmland. This will be now an advantage, I guess, to irrigation producers along that line, because until this time, a lot of the costs of maintaining those irrigation canals, maintaining the system, have been borne by the irrigation producers and the irrigation users along those lines. And this will, we believe, share some of those costs to other peoples using that water along there. And it will become a true urban agricultural industry partnership. And that's what's really needed to make this work. Some of the results of market influences. Everyone was there that 3 or 4 years ago when MD of Rocky View for Cross Iron Mills north of Calgary transferred water to there. In talking with their people there, the proceeds from this were reinvested in water conservation and infrastructure, and they had a 3-to-1 return on investment. 3 times the water of use by the MD of Balzac, of Rocky View, will be conserved. So it puts more water to more end users. Plans are being studied to increase upstream capacities. And with the past floods we've seen in southern Alberta, I think that these upstream capacities will be critical to managing the water we have so we can use it when we need it. No one needs all the water off the mountains flowing off through Calgary at X number of miles and straight out to Saskatchewan. Future water needs, upstream sources, groundwater sources, water use planning. We look forward to the South Saskatchewan River Plan to be some of that land use planning, and let's put the industries in the right place where water is. And we look forward to some of that and see how that works into this. Maintaining water quality in all basins, I think, is critical. And I think we have to look at the effects of industrial activity. I know that sometimes industry wants to settle in certain areas because it makes more economic sense, but I think we really have to use our land use plans to manage where we're going to do that. Advances in agriculture. Varietal research is ongoing steadily to using more drought-resistant varieties that require less water to produce the same type of end product for us. Adaptive crop rotations, different things we can use out there to go forward. Sprinklers and irrigation changes, better sprinkler nozzles, better irrigation equipment. Educating farmers on water needs and usage. Energy efficiency and pumping. They're all things that we can use to make a better and more efficient irrigation system. I guess in conclusion, I'm going to close and say that we believe as agriculture, and especially the people in southern Alberta along the rivers down there and the allocated rivers, that commercial markets have proven to be effective at getting the infrastructure and the capital necessary to increase the availability of water for all users along the systems. They can continue to provide funding for these increases in conservation that are necessary to make the South Saskatchewan River Basin in southern Alberta and Alberta as a whole a viable, multi-sectored industry. Agriculture and agri-food will just be one of many sectors that will require a secure water supply in the future. And we're interested and happy to be at the table to go forward. Closing, I guess this is a summer speech, so you should always have something there. Your fences need to be horse high, pig tight, and bull strong. Keep skunks and bankers at a distance. Life is simpler when we plow around that bad stump. Timing always has a lot to do with the outcome of a rain dance. And always drink upstream from the herd. And when you quit laughing, you quit living. So with that, there's a picture. I'm very proud to be involved in agriculture. And a line I like to close all my talks with is that Alberta, agriculture is Alberta's largest renewable industry. Thank you. Oops.
That's okay. That's great. Thanks, Humphrey.